question is, how do you feel about Russia being involved in Syria since it's so close to Israel? Very good question.
Well, I'm not too happy about that. I'm not too happy about that. I'm not too happy about Russia and Putin filling the void which has been created with the departure or the seeming departure of the United States. We have to remember, our friend and ally is the United States. And it will remain so because of many reasons. You know, the compatibility between two democracies. Russia is not a democracy. But Syria, I'm afraid, with the Russian intervention or without, Syria is no longer an integral or a one united country. And again, it goes back to the Sykes-Picot Agreement. You know, the French and the German at the end of, the French and the British at the end of World War I, before the defeat of the Germans and the Turks. Ottoman Empire, and all those Arab countries of today are not really natural countries, save of Egypt. So you see that Syria, in a way, it was just putting together, trying to glue together Druze and Cherkess and Christians and Sunnis and Alawis and Kurds. So there was a suppressive regime like the Assad regime. You know, all this internal fighting was swept under the rug, just like in the Soviet Union. You know, the Soviet Union for 70 years, from the outside, it looked like a monolith because of the abuse of power by communism and the police state. But at the end of communism, what happened? The Soviet Union broke up to 15 different republics. So Syria is just a case in point. It's not only Syria. You will see it in Libya, you will see it in Yemen, you will see it in Lebanon. So Syria, you cannot glue together these pieces because it's unnatural. So I believe at the end of the day, we will see like sub-nation units. You see that Assad, we see you already, right. So I believe that what Russia is doing in Syria is taking care of its own interest. And the interest of Russia today, from a geopolitical point of view, is to side with Assad, with the Alawis. Why? Because the Alawis are the ones that control, they populate the Mediterranean Strip of Latakia and Tartus, so they have their two important ports for the Russian Navy. They control of Damascus with the air base and the airport over there. And I believe this is what at the end of the day, the Russian intervention will actually assure the tearing apart of Syria into maybe a Christian region, a Kurdish region, maybe a Druze region, a Sunni region, and Alawi, which is part of a Shia.
You know, one thing we did not talk about.
Is this good or bad for Israel? At the end of the day, I believe that from a strategic point of view, it's benefit for Israel because this mighty Syrian army is no more. But from a tactical point of view, it may cause a problem because then you have renegade organizations like ISIS and others without any control. So, but we will know how to take care of it.
We will. One of the things we did not talk about is China and India, which together comprise virtually half of the planet. And talk to us about that, the opportunities for the next century.
Huge opportunities for Israel. You know, the economic now cooperation between Israel and China and Israel and India has gone up like 100-fold. And
you see that in your own consultancy?
Absolutely.
You see that?
Absolutely. There isn't a day go by when there is an Indian delegation or a Chinese delegation looking for basically technology in Israel. India is also a great strategic partner because India also has a lot of problem with Islamic terrorism. So today the defense relations between Israel and India are really on a great trajectory. With China, it's a little bit more problematic. Why? Because China is seen as a strategic rival to the United States. So, as the US is our best friend and ally, we cannot export to China military technology or even technology which is of dual use. You know, technology that can be used for the So by this, we are, we are losing many billions of dollars, but we rather do it and keep the natural alliance with the United States.
Suing China because apparently they were laundering terrorist money, and he wanted to know what came of that.
I don't know if anything that came about, but I think that the Israeli government would be well served by pursuing it all the way here in American courts, and I'm not sure that they were vigorously going after them as they should. And I say it now as outside of government, and I think this will be a mistake not to go all the way. You're absolutely right. There was the Chinese banks that were laundering and actually transferring terror money that went into Hamas and also to Palestinian terrorists that came out of the Palestinian Authority. The case, as I understand it, is not quite resolved yet, and there is some evidence which is withheld that the Israeli government has, and I would certainly like to see that evidence given to the court.
Sometimes I think the best PR is the law. So in that spirit of taking legal measures, have you been keeping in touch with what's going on here in America, especially in the past few months, where some states are actually legislating anti-BDS measures?
Tremendous, yes.
Yes.
And I can say only thank you. Thank you to the American people, because they are so decent against these boycotts, against these sanctions, against this really interruption of democratic rules and free trade. And certainly, to counter BDS is not just in the PR world, which we have to do, but also in the legal, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have 5 or 6 states already passed measures. We do. And you're going to fix it. Okay. Oh, I promised him first. Go ahead, sir. Well, she's your wife, so you have a dilemma. Shalom bayit or become a star with everyone else? A star with your wife or a star with all of us? Pick your wife. Heinz company.
Because
what's the question?
We keep growing, we bring new cows. Israel is called a startup nation. You notice that there is no big IT or, there's no Israeli Microsoft or Israeli Intel or Oracle, because our comparative advantage is in the innovation and the R&D. Israel is a big R&D. All American and non-American international companies are in Israel, having R&D. This is what we are. We are much better in engineering and innovation and development than we are in marketing and managing a big organization. So instead of producing and selling products, we are selling ideas and we are selling, the innovation. So we sell startups. This is what we do. We sell companies when they are in their startup position, and with the proceeds, what do? We create more startups.
But it's true that I think Israel is starting to see that it's not good to sell too quickly. Zuckerberg was offered $1 billion for Facebook, 8 years ago. Now it's worth $100 billion. So I think there's more of a sense now of playing it tough with negotiations. When Google wanted to buy Waze, Waze decided they wanted to stay in Israel. So I think we're starting to see a little more, more patience in terms of Israel, milking some of their innovations rather than selling them too quickly. A couple more questions. Yeah, go ahead.
I talked to you about this before, Mr. For instance, and by the way, you mentioned that Israel is helping to fight terrorism. I'm sure you must have seen on the news just the last couple of days that I guess it's the CIA or the Homeland Security is using an Israeli company to break the phone.
Right.
Yeah, so they're doing it now. Why is it like rocket science to say, like if people only knew that Israel did this with tomatoes, if people only knew that Israel was such a wonderful country with water, well, I know everyone in this room would love to drive down Wilshire Boulevard and see a billboard that said, Israel is the hope for the future for water. Or in Times Square, yes. Or a television advertisement that says, Israel is the hope for the future for water in the Mideast.
Well, you know what's amazing?
Why isn't Israel doing an ad campaign or a public relations campaign to let everybody know?
Yeah, I can take that one. Yeah, business. First of all, it's amazing you bring up water because, I mean, you know, one of the best sellers of the whole year. One of the most talked about books of the year. Seth Siegel, Let There Be Water. It's unbelievable. It's going all around the world. I spoke to him last week. It's just a phenomenon. And it's also a terrific book. But I just want to tell you, I completely agree with the idea of doing a mass media campaign that includes billboards on Sunset Strip, commercials on the Super Bowl, on the Academy Awards, on the NBA Finals, in Times Square. I've actually been working on something like that because I think one of the big mistakes that Israel made is they forget about mass media. So much of what they do is sort of niche, and America is like, they're into mass media. So the same way that you have Nike and Apple, you ought to have Israel. All right, a couple of questions because I'm still trying to digest the cholent. Go ahead. You?
David, you called the current intifada creepy, and Ambassador Ayalon, you said that it's minimal damage, this intifada. And I wanted to say that it certainly doesn't feel that way to us, even when one Jew received a terrible, horrible stabbing or horrible killings. Isn't it, and the Arabs are motivated to do this, isn't it high time that we tell the world, excuse the expression, go to hell with your one-state, two-state solution. We have one state, annex Judea and Samaria, and finally put an end to this idea of carving another Arab state out of the land of Israel.
Yeah, that's an easy one. There's just no way.
Well, you'll have to wait until I form my own party. That's the part of the platform.
There's no way that a Palestinian state's going to happen in the foreseeable future. It just ain't going to happen. I got to tell you, the whole theme of tonight is that Israel really is a light unto the nations. Thank you very much.